Unfortunately, this is something that most entrepreneurs are probably not going to want to hear. If you take 100 new startups and put them all in a room together, 95 of them are going to be closed by the end of 5 years. Great products fail all the time. It doesn't matter how innovative it is or how cool it is or even how different it is from everything else that exists on the market. What really matters is that you have a product that the market actually wants. And if you don't have that, then nothing else matters. But in this video, I'm gonna tell you how to create the perfect product market fit so that you don't create, well, a dud. And we're gonna get started right now. The truth is, some of the most promising startups that we thought had all the components to succeed, well, they failed. Katera raised $2 billion before they failed. The House Party app was acquired for $35 million. And guess what happened to them? They failed too. MoviePass had over 3 million users. And then they did wonderful. No, I'm kidding. They failed too. So let's look at some really important stats. The first one is that 90% of businesses fail within 5 years. And of those businesses, 35% of them fail because there's no market need. Another 10% fail because the product is just mistimed. Now, I'm not saying any of this to discourage you, but the facts are the facts. The truth is that the likelihood that you're gonna build something that fails is much higher than the likelihood that you're gonna build the next Facebook or build the next Dropbox or build something that really takes off in the market. Because there are millions of startups operating today. And if you're gonna compete in these ultra competitive markets, then you're gonna have to build something that consumers actually want. And not just something that they want, but more importantly, something that they're actually willing to pay for. And furthermore, you're gonna have to know exactly what the market wants far before you even start building your product. Because there's one stat that I forgot to mention. Around 38% of businesses that fail do so because they ran out of capital. And one of the easiest ways to run out of capital is to keep having to rebuild and readapt your product until you finally achieve the right fit for the market. So in this video, I'm gonna give you a 6-step process to help you find your market, find out what exactly they need to solve their challenges, and learn what it is that you need to build in order to attract them. Before you even start thinking about building a product, you need to define exactly who your market is. If you just think of the name product market fit, you will realize that there's really 2 parts to this whole thing. You have the product and you have the market. The good news is that you can choose exactly what market you're gonna serve. But the bad news is that you can't change the market. You can't change their experiences. You can't change their outlooks, their perceptions, their backgrounds, or their desires. In the end, you don't decide what it is that the market wants. The consumers that are operating within that market, they decide. In other words, you're gonna have to adapt your product to the market instead of thinking that you can adapt the market to your product. So you're gonna have to decide, who is it exactly that I'm hoping to serve? Because there are hundreds or thousands of different markets, sub-markets, and audiences out there. From pet lovers and banking customers to fashion enthusiasts and travelers, from teachers to content creators to marketers, people who love pandas, people who hate pandas, people who ski, people who go to the beach, motorcyclists, car lovers, and the list goes on and on and on. And once you think that you know exactly what market you're gonna serve, well, that's only half the battle. You also have to really assess that market, because if you're gonna have a big business, then you also have to have a big market. So let's say that you have this really grand idea that's gonna help octopus hunters catch more octopuses, or octopi, or octopus pie, or whatever. Anyway, you know exactly who your market is, octopus hunters. But there's a problem. There's probably only like 17 octopus hunters operating in the whole nation. So even if you were able to attract 100% of the market and earn total market share, you still wouldn't be able to build a profitable and sustainable business because your market size would just be way too small. You have to do your research, and you have to do a lot of research, because before you move into any subsequent steps, you definitely want to know who your market is and how many people operate within that market. So now you've done your research and you have all this new information about your market. So now you're ready to start building your product, right? Wrong. Because at this point, you might know who your audience is, but you don't know what they want, what they need, what they desire, what exactly it is that'll solve their challenges. You don't know what it is that they're willing to buy. And that's where the second step comes in. Because if you really want to know what it is that your market is looking for, what it is that consumers are willing to buy, you don't have to guess and you don't have to assume. You can just ask them. My mom used to say that when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Unfortunately, I'm not joining the team with you. If you're gonna make an ass out of anybody, you're gonna make an ass out of yourself. But if you wanna save yourself from that experience, then you can do what the big brands do. Because when big brands wanna learn more about their audience, they do 2 things. They host interviews and they run surveys. See, interviews, they give you qualitative data. In other words, it helps you to understand human nature and learn why people do the things they do, why they think the way they think. And while it might sound intimidating, it's actually really easy to do. First, you write up 10 or 15 questions that will help you to understand exactly the challenges that your market is going through, the things that your customers don't like about current solutions, and the specific qualities that they want to see in a new product. And then you find 10 or 20 people that meet your demographic and you interview them. Surveys, on the other hand, are a little bit harder to complete, but they can give you a massive amount of quantitative data that'll help you make better decisions with your product and with your business. Generally speaking, and for statistical relevance, you're really gonna need a lot more people to take your survey than you would if you were just doing customer interviews. If you do these steps correctly, you'll have real hard evidence. And not just evidence, but exclusive data that only you know. And that gives you a massive advantage over competitors, because now you can go and build the perfect product that they don't even know that they're supposed to be building. So now you know who your market is, the challenges they're facing, and the type of features that they will want to see in a solution. So now is the perfect time to start building your product, right? Not quite. Actually, now isn't the stage where you want to start building. Now is the time that you really want to assess the data that you have, understand your customers, and then start conceptualizing the perfect solution. The first thing you want to do is make a list of all of your customers' challenges, and then start jotting down features that can solve each of those customer problems. And then once you have all of these features written down, and this is an important part, you start peeling them back. You want to keep the 2 or 3 features that actually solve the customer's problem, and then get rid of all of the unnecessary fluff. The ones that you cross out may be super cool, but they're not as useful. They'll just take you way more time and way more money to build and give you very little return. Ultimately, you want the features that you keep to be the ones that allow your customers to solve their problem better than they're able to solve it with any other existing solution. But you're still not really ready to start building. Instead, you want to take this list and then start taking the first steps in the product development process. If it's an app or some kind of web platform, then you can create a blueprint or wireframe it. If it's a physical product, then you can draw it up and then create some kind of 3D model to showcase the visual of it. In other words, you want to take that list of features and turn it into something tangible. Because even if it's just some elementary level design on your computer, the moment that you can see it is the moment that it becomes real. So now you're ready to start building, right? Wait. Hold your horses, because we're not there yet. Because it's great that you have a wireframe or a 3D drawing and you know exactly the features that customers want. But instead of taking the risky move to start building your product at this point, you should take all of these new assets and then go back to number 2. Yep, you got it. More interviews and more surveys. Because now you have more information, but now you want to find out if that list of features that you came up with is actually what's needed to solve their problem. And your questions in this round of interviews and surveys should reflect just that. This will give you new information, new confirmation, and new validation that you're on the right path. And guess what? You can finally start building something. But you don't want to go building some full-fledged solution with all of those features in that list that you came up with. Instead, in this stage, you want to build a bare bones MVP, or a minimum viable product. The product doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be well designed, and really it should only contain the minimum amount of features necessary to test it with real users. Basically, there are 3 parts to a minimum viable product. It's minimum, it's viable, and if you haven't guessed it, it's a product. It's minimum because you'll strip it down to just the features necessary to solve one single problem for your customers. We're talking Facebook before it was Facebook. Back when it was Face Mash and just available to students at Harvard. It's viable because it actually works and it allows customers to solve whatever problem it is that they're experiencing. And it's a product because it's real, it's tangible, it's something that you can feel or you can touch, or in the case of an app or a software solution, it's something that you can log into and actually use. You don't want to make the mistake of launching into the market with a full feature product on your first go. You're going to spend way too much money and way too much time building a bunch of untested features that ultimately nobody is really going to want to use. But when you start with just one feature, you can test whether people are engaged with that one specific feature before you move on to the next one. And that gets us to the next step, which is launching your MVP and generating real feedback from real users. The feedback you generate here will either tell you whether you're on the right path or whether you've completely missed the mark on what it is that your customers really want. Now, you're gonna have to do some marketing and promoting here to actually drive people to your minimum viable product, whether that's using Google Ads, social media, or some other marketing channel. I won't get too deep into the marketing side because we already have a ton of different videos on marketing, and you can just head back to our channel and check those out at your convenience. So how do you generate feedback? Well, one way is to go back to doing more interviews and more surveys. except this time you're gonna be doing it with real customers and real users of your product. And if you haven't figured it out yet, you're gonna be doing a lot of interviewing and a lot of surveying as you're going through this product development journey. And that's okay, because once again, the way to build a product that people really want is to first understand what it is that they really want. The other way that you will be generating feedback data, especially if you're building an app or a software solution, is by analyzing real usage data. Looking at actual behavior data can tell you how many people used your product, how long they used your product, how many times they came back, and what they did while they were there. And all of these things combined can tell you whether your product is actually solving their challenge or not. If they keep coming back, for instance, then they're obviously getting some type of value. But if only 10% of users come back for a second time to use your product, then that's a great indicator that you're probably gonna have to change something. And that gets me to the final step. After you've thoroughly analyzed the data, then you'll either pivot or you'll persevere. If the stats show that your audience isn't grasping the solution, then you're gonna have to pivot and try something else. But if they engage deeply with your product and your statistics show positive, then you can persevere and keep doing what you're doing and start this whole process over again with the next feature that you want to add to your product. Ultimately, you can't be scared to deviate away from your initial idea if the stats show that it's necessary. The whole point of product market fit is that you have to keep adapting your product until it fits with what the market wants. Because ultimately, you can't jam a square peg into a round hole, no matter how many times you try to twist it or try to turn it to make it fit. And the only way that you'll make it fit through that hole is to change its shape. And likewise, the only way that you're gonna get your product to fit the market is to change it until it fits what the market actually wants. But luckily, if you followed all of these steps, then you'll have the data that you need to know that a round peg is what you're actually supposed to be building. Now, these 6 steps aren't linear because this is a cycle. When you pivot, you start back at the data gathering stage. Then you create new solutions, you gather more feedback, you launch another MVP, you gather more feedback, and then you reassess to see if you finally found your way. And you do this same cycle until you achieve product market fit. But I know exactly what you're about to ask me. How do I know when my team has achieved product market fit? And for that one, I'll turn to someone who is much more of an expert in this topic than I am. Mark Andreessen from the VC capital firm Andreessen Horowitz. In an article that he wrote for his blog, he left a quote that really addressed this subject in the most detail possible. He said, "You can always feel when product market fit isn't happening. The customers aren't quite getting value out of the product, word of mouth isn't spreading, usage isn't growing that fast, press reviews are kind of blah, the sales cycle takes too long, and lots of deals never close. And you can always feel product market fit when it's happening. The customers are buying the product just as fast as you can make it, or usage is growing just as fast as you can add more servers. Money from customers is piling up in your company checking account. You're hiring sales and customer support staff as fast as you can. Reporters are calling because they've heard about your hot new thing and they want to talk to you about it. You start getting Entrepreneur of the Year awards from Harvard Business School. Investment bankers are staking out your house. You can eat free for a year at Bucks." Once you've achieved product market fit, then you can start expanding your product while building up your customer base. At this level is where you'll likely start seeking investor funding. And to do that, you're gonna need an awesome pitch deck that proves that a product market fit exists. And if you don't know how to create a winning pitch deck, well, we have a video right here that'll walk you through every slide and tell you exactly what you need to know. If you found this video helpful, make sure that you drop a like down below and hit the subscribe button, because we drop videos every week and you definitely don't want to miss some of the fire that we've got coming up to help you grow your startup. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and keep creating amazing shit.